So today we're going to talk about transitioning, or should I say, building the bridges. And that's the one thing that we kind of touched up on last week a little bit, but I really want to talk about building the bridge and the importance of building the bridge. So let's back up a little bit and say, what is the bridge? Well, the bridge is the connection from the spiritual world to the physical world. We get into these meditations, we start to feel euphoric and we get all these great feelings, but we don't know what that means in the physical. And we sure don't understand how to take that physical feeling and make it a reality, or that spiritual feeling and make it a reality in this world. And we get kind of lost. So you get people just meditating all the time. They get this thing, oh, I'm in a meditative, blissful space, but they're like, well, my life is still, not really giving me the things that I want, and my life is still kind of stagnant, or it's could be in turmoil, wherever it may be, but it's just still not the place that you want to really be in. And it's because people are not understanding how to take what they're experiencing in meditation and bringing it over into the reality every day. Now, eventually what happens when you keep meditating over time, that meditative space will begin to merge into your everyday walking life. And that is the ultimate goal, to become a walking meditation. Once you become that walking meditation, everything then begins to replicate, or basically begins to mirror everything that you're experiencing, all the highs that you're experiencing. So today, let's talk about the transition, or the bridge, building the bridge. How do we build a bridge? First thing we talked about is intention. We talked about that last week. So I'm going to add on to intention and really look at listening to inspirations. Once you set the intention of the meditation, then it puts you into that mind space. It aligns your vibration to something. Okay, that intention is to something. Now, when we align to that intention, we're going to get inspirations during the meditations. Sometimes they come after meditations, and they can be very subtle, but we still get inspiration. So the key is to then follow the inspirations. So you first set an intent, you go into the euphoric space, the meditative space. You begin to get downloads. Now, a lot of times what we do is we look at reality, or we look at the meditative state, the altered state of consciousness, as a reality, which it is, but it's an altered state. And then we try to basically rationalize what that reality means by looking at what we're seeing, and we try to make that then, okay, well, this should be my reality, because you see yourself in a lavish house, or a plush life. But then you're like, well, when I come back out of the meditation, come back into my regular state of consciousness, I don't have those things. Well, when you get wrapped up into the feeling, what you're doing, you're aligning to what you truly desire. Setting intent aligns you to that. Now the next thing you have to do is listen to your inspirations. In that meditation, there might be a piece that says, shift your job. It could be a piece that says, okay, you see this lavish lifestyle, and then you see yourself thinking a different way. Well, the inspiration is, think a different way. Make a change in your job. Doesn't mean you have to change your job, but you might have to start changing the way that you look at your current job. So little things, very subtle things, come to you so that you can begin to start a pathway to create that vibe, or to create the match of that vibration in this reality. So you want to pay attention. Another big thing that happens is we don't get the inspirations in the meditations. After we get out of meditations, we're walking down the street and we hear a conversation. It has nothing to do with us, but it's answering the questions to how we can get to this intent. Then we have to take the action. So we got the intent, we got the inspiration, and now we got the action. Okay? You got to have those three things. And there's one more thing. Let's talk about the action. So the action is then trusting yourself enough to go ahead and make that step to do what you got to do. That means going against the grain of what your conscious mind that has taught you from your earthly learning to do or not to do. So your mind says think differently, but your inspiration says think differently. But your mind says, I ain't thinking different because this person been this way all their life and they're gonna continue to be this way. Now you just created that reality with your own thought, because the action behind the thought is now saying or speaking that this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. So you got to realize simply changing one thought process about the personality of a person can shift that person, especially if you become the highest consciousness. Because the highest consciousness is the one that's always going to win. So if that person comes into your space, they have to then vibrate on your consciousness. So that means they got to vibrate as the person that you're seeing them as. It's just that simple. So you don't have to be worried about being around anybody or going into presence of anybody. If your consciousness is high and you know what you want to see from this person, you see it from that person. Your thoughts create your reality. This is the law, okay? So what we did, we just put action behind that intent and those inspirations. Now, we got to keep putting action. So the fourth thing we got to do is we have to practice. We have to continuously do it. We can't do it one time and it's over, okay? We got to continuously think a different way. And that's the first and easiest way to do this. If you can't see it, at least just think it. Begin to think and imagine and have fun and seeing something in a different space. If you see a relationship with somebody and the relationship is strained, see the relationship flowing. Continue to see the relationship flowing, and then you will start to begin to raise your consciousness, especially through more meditation, and the relationship then begins to stable out. And then when you talk to the person, you see the person, you have to have communication with them. It goes exactly how you want it. And this goes back into the class Mind Power. So all this stuff you guys know, it's been shown to you, it's been taught, or it's out there, but it's not put into practice. So practice is the key. It's, action is the kind of the finale of creating a new reality. But then we have to put it into practice. We have to continue to think. We have to continue to listen to the inspirations. We have to continue to act on the inspirations. Okay? And so the more that we do that, the more our lives begin to change. And it just literally happens overnight. And next thing you know, it's like your mindset shifts and you don't even see things the way you looked at things before. So all of a sudden, it's like, my life changed. And you don't even realize it. And it's not that your life changed, it's your thought process changed. So when your thought process changed, you just create a whole new reality. So if you're sitting and you're thinking in lack, you're going to keep creating lack. That's why we do the mirror. I say, how many cons do we do in the first 3 or 4 days? Write them down. Are you thinking more of a negative, a con, versus a pro? And if you're thinking more in the negative, guess what? You're going to be creating more negative situations. Power positive thought. Class starts on Tuesday. Negative thoughts create negative results. Positive thoughts create positive results in every situation. Then we go back into this little thing called willpower. And willpower says what? We have a choice to think negatively or positively. This is what we have to have the strength and the volition in our minds, our conscious minds, to say, I'm not going to think this way. I'm going to think this way. And when I say that, it's like you can choose to engage in lower frequency vibrations, or you can choose to engage in a higher frequency vibration. But sometimes that egoic consciousness says, no, we're going to engage. Let me just feel good for a second, engage, and you engage and you let it out, and you think you won, but you just actually created discord in your body. So now you just created disease somewhere else. So did you really win? So these are things you got to understand. This is stuff that you're thinking about. Well, these are things, the subtleties. Was it in initiation the other day? I talked about comfort and discomfort. And I said, who's uncomfortable? And most people raise their hand. I raised my hand high as I could probably put up 2 hands, because I'm always in an uncomfortable situation. Why? Because I'm always growing. Now, my uncomfortable is different from somebody else's uncomfortable. My uncomfortable is not of a lower frequency. My uncomfortable is a higher frequency, okay? But it takes practice and time to build to that. So when somebody says that they're not uncomfortable, that means you're not growing. And then when you really look at it and you really tap into it, ask the question, do you have everything you want in your life right now? Is everything just the way you want it to be? Or are you striving to do something? Well, if you're striving to do something, it means you're learning something new, you're doing something new, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be the growing pains with it. It just happens. So therefore, you're not as comfortable as you think. So that's the other thing, we have to be aware. So we go back into awareness. Awareness is always key. Always be aware of your thought process. Always be aware of where you are. When you're aware of where you are, you can objectively see what you need to do to change. And we always have to change somewhere in our lives. We always have to shift our thinking, because every day something changes different. Every second the planetary alignment is different. So we have to change. Right? There is so much change. Change is the only thing constant in this world. Change and death. It's going to happen. So learn to embrace it. So today we're going to build that bridge, bringing the meditative reality into the physical reality. Just like last time, I'm going to put some affirmations in there, keywords, auto-suggestions. The more that you hear these affirmations, the more you auto-suggest and you transform from the old negative thought process, old paradigms of thought processes. The old paradigms have changed sometimes. And how many of us have carried things in this lifetime from our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents? We don't even know this in our DNA, because guess what? Their thoughts are in us. It's in the DNA. It becomes a reality part of us. So when you are becoming and growing from this piece of DNA, you have that DNA with you. That's a whole other conversation. But you see how one goes into the next, into the next, into the next, and it never stops. Because it's an ongoing process. The soul is here to develop over time, many lifetimes. Human beings, 75 million years old. There's a whole lot that has gone on, so don't get it twisted. Right. This one little lifetime has not been provided for you to be in the state of ascension. It's, you're just here. It took 75 million years to get here. So enjoy the process, because now you have free will. So now it's a choice. Make the choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to engage and react, or do you want to act? And then don't let your ego trick you, because the ego will trick you. It'll make you say, oh, you're acting, but you're really reacting. But that's where awareness comes in. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to build some bridges.
Thanks. Factual.
I did.
Go ahead, ask.
He said he did.
First question is in regards to what you said about you using your vibration to change another person.
Mm-hmm.
First, the thought came to my mind, but then are you manipulating that person and taking away their free will?
Not at all. You know why? Because they're choosing to come into your world.
Okay. And second question then, you said if you're not in discomfort, is it okay to be comfortable?
This is okay to be comfortable, but it's being comfortable in change. So there's always it's kind of like a comfortable uncomfortableness. You become comfortable with the uncomfortableness.
Okay.
So you're comfortable, but you're still uncomfortable. But you can deal with it. But you think about this, we do this every day in life. When we get into jobs that we don't want to be in, it's discomfortable, as uncomfortable as can be. But we stay in that job and we go there every day.
Yeah.
Because it pays the check and it's comfortable enough to pay the check, but it's not uncomfortable enough to leave because it's doing what it needs to do.
That's right.
So that is the comfortable uncomfortableness.
Oh, that's what I had yesterday when I got that phone call.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that turned itself around.
Yeah. And so you can always change,
Okay.
Like any call that comes in, take your vibration and choose to act and not react. And what you then do is you focus on where you want to go. And you don't stop talking about where you want to go and keep going in that direction. It is their choice to engage and go with you, or they can drop off. But if you keep going higher and just keep going higher and keep going, they're going to stop engaging, first of all, and they're going to either dissolve and fall off, and they're going to say, all right, I can't talk anymore, bye. Something will happen, the phone will get cut off, and they'll go. Or they'll engage with you and say, yeah, I need to do this. But it's just keeping your mind open and showing other possibilities of realities or other avenues. So the more that you learn about positive thought in different ways of doing something, the more you can speak to someone. But yeah, when somebody comes into your universe, their free will is to come into your universe. That means they're engaging with you. So if you're a higher being and you've chosen to engage with a higher being, and they're not coming down, so you're going to have to come up. And so that's a choice. Yeah. And that's even in the courtroom for you. You go in that courtroom, you see yourself as a higher being and doing whatever you want to do, whether it be winning or settling or whatever. But everybody has to come to your mindset. And I tell you, 98, 99% of the cases, you're going to have the outcome that you choose. It's inevitable. It is law. And it's almost like people don't believe that. I can tell you, with spiritual energy, see, that's just mental energy. When you bring the spiritual energy, it's a whole nother ballgame.